Hello, I'm Rachel from Douentza Garden in Ireland, and you are very welcome to this Cymbidium repotting video. Now this video is an emergency repot, and we're going today to repot this Cymbidium and this big fellow over here. Now what's happened is that these are rotting. In the summer I move my Cymbidiums out of the greenhouse and place them in a sheltered spot where they're protected from rain. Now I've been doing this for several years and it's never been an issue. In fact, if these plants were to remain in the greenhouse for the summer, it would be far too hot for them. However, this year the weather was unseasonably wet. It just rained and rained and rained for nearly all of July. In fact, it was the wettest July on record here in Ireland. And the result, unfortunately, was that my sheltered position was not so sheltered anymore, and the rain got in and it ended up rotting my poor Cymbidiums. But I didn't realise straight away. Took my eye off the ball there. So I've spent the last day repotting some of the Cymbidiums, used up all my mix, had to go to the shop to get some more mix, and now we're going to address the final two. Now these are heavy, and that's an indication of what's going on there with the rot. So let's take a look. Now, before we decant this beast here and see what's going on, it occurs to me that some of you might have tuned into this video expecting to see a regular Cymbidium repotting video. This is about a rotting Cymbidium. Quite a different ball game when your Cymbidium is actually rotting. We're going to deal with two Cymbidiums today. This one, which has lovely pink flowers, and let me see, a new growth here, newish growth here, and a newish growth over here. And then the other one we're going to deal with is this big fellow, which seems like a big plant, but if you have a look here, you'll see that there's a big empty space in the pot, and that's because this section of the plant has already rotted, and I twisted the pseudobulbs and took them out. However, that's not the solution, and I do need to address the roots that are down there. Okay, so now we are going to try and get this Cymbidium out of its pot and give it a good shake. The good thing about Cymbidiums that are rotting is that they're actually easier to get out of the pot than healthy ones. So let's just give it a bit of a pull, and being very careful not to grab new growths and snap them, because that is the danger. And that looks like a flower spike to me, so I'll just be careful. Here we go. Out it comes. Now, you know what? It isn't too bad at all. The mix is quite wet, and as I just kind of fluff around with my fingers to take it off, I can feel that there is squidginess in there with the roots of the plant, but it's not too bad at all. The smell is of decomposing mix, and it's not a good smell, I can tell you. Okay, so let's just worry it around here. Okay, this piece is a separate piece. It wants to come off separately, and we will allow it. And then just move around with your hands, worrying the mix away from the plant. And these roots don't look too bad at all. Okay, so there is one division, I suppose you might call it. And the roots are actually all right on this. Have I been too dramatic? Have I led you to believe something was going on that it's not? Okay, here's another division from the center. That's not too bad either. And then this is the biggest part of the plant. And again, let's just worry away the mix, trying our best to ignore the smell. And this is the piece with, I guess there's one old pseudobulb, one new pseudobulb, another old pseudobulb, and perhaps a flower spike. Now, also, this isn't a plant that I've twisted out rotting pseudobulbs, so it's quite good. Now, a couple of these roots are a bit squidgy, so I'm going to, with my trusty secateurs, snip them off. And you can feel what's rotten or not. If you press it and it's still firm, then it's good. But you can see that this root, for example, which seems quite firm, but only round to about here, and then it's rotten. So the end bit is what gets snipped off. And then just having a quick look around here. And this one, oh, it's not too bad at all. Not too bad at all. Okay, you know what, let's put these three pieces aside for the moment and have a look at what's going on with the big guy, the big yellow one. So here is this plant, and I do know that this one is rotting, at least this section here was. So let's try and get it out of the pot. Okay. And here we have a very big root ball, which I am just kind of worrying slightly to get the medium out. Now, when I repotted this plant a while ago, 3 years ago, I ended up with several pieces of the same cymbidium, and I repotted them all in the one pot, which is this pot here now. So I'm not surprised that, for example, this piece is breaking off and can be a standalone, because it was originally, and you know, it would take a long time for them to knit together and for all those roots to become entwined so that you wouldn't know it was a separate plant. Now look, there's a big bit of root that has come off here, and this poor piece really does not have a lot of root going for it. It's a couple of back pseudobulbs and 2 in leaf and no new growths, and very degraded roots that just kind of come away in my hand. So that's not great. Let's put that down here, and then let's have a little look at what's going on here with this other piece, or pieces potentially. And again, we just work away at the medium. My goodness, this is so much easier than what I did it last time. Just because the roots were very healthy last time and they held on to the plant. And here we have a nice little piece, I guess. It still has some good roots, and you can see how the fresh green roots are what is really desirable, I guess. Okay, so that's quite a nice piece, although small. It's small. And then the final bit, I guess the roots are quite bad on this. This piece here is just broken away. I'm going to discard it. I don't think there's much value in holding on to it. And then here we have a salvageable piece with some good roots. And here is what is left of the yellow cymbidium, which in fact is a mini cymbidium, which you can tell by the fact that the leaves aren't as big as on the pink one, the other one. You see the pink one there? It's just a bigger plant. Okay, so I'm just having a look here and deciding what is salvageable, what is worth keeping. And I'm going to have to do a little work on the roots. Now I'm going to snip off some that are not in good shape. This is a different secateurs, by the way. I know it's the same brand, but it's the Pink Lady secateurs. It's a different one from the one I used on the other plant because you shouldn't use the same tools. There's a danger that you will, if you have some diseases or something, they could cross over from one plant to another. So with this, I'm just seeing what I'm going to cut off. And of course, sterilizing the secateurs before you start is also a good idea. Now we do have a lot of degraded roots, but all in all, these pieces aren't looking too bad. I'm wondering whether I will bother keeping some of the small pieces. And actually this piece ends up being bigger than that because this one has a load of back pseudobulbs which aren't producing anything anymore, and the 3 small pseudobulbs at the front are very, very small, whereas this one has 3 healthy green pseudobulbs and a back one. So I might actually keep that and discard the other one. Turn it over. No, it's okay. So actually I think what happened with the yellow cymbidium is that there were 4 plants in the big pot, and the largest section is what rotted, and somehow these 3 didn't really rot, except for some rotting roots. It's not too bad. And I guess this just goes to show what tough cookies cymbidiums really are. It takes a lot to actually kill one, because even though bits of them can rot, they're just very tough plants. Now this is the small bit I talked about discarding, and I'm just trying to decide what to do with it. See how very small those 3 new pseudobulbs are, and it's a weird shape, so I might keep it. Just take off the back pseudobulbs. Now the general information is that for cymbidiums, if you divide them, you should leave at least 5 pseudobulbs. So yeah, so in this case we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and in this case 1, 2, 3, 4, counting old pseudobulbs in both cases, and we have 5 here. However, the front ones are so small, but if I leave all of this on, then it's going to take a larger pot than I think the plant really warrants. So what I will do here is just break off the back pseudobulbs, and if you saw my other video on repotting cymbidiums, you will notice how hard that normally is, but very easy in this case. And we do have a new little growth here, so I might give this one a chance and just pot it up while I'm about it. So I'm just going to pop these ones in here, the yellow ones in here, to clean them up a bit while we take a look at the pink one. And I've done a little bit of a clean up here. Let's swap over the secateurs and take a look at the pink plants. Now, if you grow tropical orchids, you're probably quite familiar with the fact that you need to sterilize everything that touches the plants. Well, cymbidiums are terrestrial orchids, and I think it's less important in that case. Just make it nice and clean as you would with a regular garden plant, and everything should be okay. Now, I am very keen to do well with this one because it seems to have, well, it has a new shoot if it's not a flowering spike, and we will just kind of remove any bits of root that are not doing too well. And of course the dead pseudobulbs, the back pseudobulbs, are the ones that will tend to have roots that are degraded because they're the older roots. but these roots seem to be hanging on quite well in this particular case. So, well, that's good news, isn't it? Considering it was a rotting orchid. Oh, there's some need to come out. And just to let you know, if you do have a lot of decent cymbidium roots, you can always trim them. That's never a problem. But I think, you know, we don't have roots to play with in this particular case. Now, I'm trying to decide whether to remove some of these pseudobulbs, back pseudobulbs, or not. And certainly, I think I will take this one off. Back pseudobulbs will provide food for the plant, even though they don't look like they're doing much. But yeah, we don't need too many of them. Okay, so that's off. And of course, you can propagate cymbidiums from back dead looking pseudobulbs, which I'll show you in just a minute. But I think I will then leave that as is. So 1, 2 old pseudobulbs, and then 1, 2 healthy pseudobulbs, and 1 new growth and 1 potential flower spike. Okay, I think that's okay. Now have a look at this one and this one. As we can see, there's not much of it at all. It's 1 pseudobulb and a new growth and very few roots. So actually, you know what? I think I might just discard that together with this. And this guy as well is so teeny tiny that I think I'll just get rid of him. So in terms of the pink one, we're just left with this. So I've just cleaned this plant up a little bit, poured some water over it, and I think it's looking very much in better nick. And I'm going to pot it on in a deep pot, and cymbidiums do like deeper pots. Now, I have tried putting them in clay pots in the past, but I just find them so unwieldy, like just so heavy to move around, that I've stopped doing that, because you can get deep clay pots. And cymbidiums, they don't like to be over potted, so they don't like to be in a pot that's too big for them. They need about 2 inches from the edge of the pot to the plant, and that is a bit smaller than 2 inches, but we'll go with that because it's actually quite difficult to get the deep pots. And the mix I'm using is just like a garden centre orchid mix, and the reason why I'm using that is because I ran out of the nice stuff, the Alocasia mix from Cybotanica. And Cybotanica are a great source of potting mixes. They provide all kinds of mixes for houseplants basically, and Cymbidium is generally considered a houseplant. And the Alocasia mix is the one that they recommend for use with Cymbidiums. Okay, however, I couldn't wait to repot this, so that's why we're doing this now with a mix that I bought in the garden centre. And we'll just backfill a bit here, making sure that the new growth is given plenty of space in front of it. And always giving it a bit of a tap down as we go. And of course, it's very important as well to leave enough space between the top of the mix and the top of the pot. I think it's about 1 inch is recommended. Otherwise, you can't water your plant properly. You're afraid to put enough water in because it'll just overflow. However, this plant getting not enough water hasn't been its issue lately. What with the dreadful summer we had and the terrible drowning the poor thing has had. And that is the pink one potted up. So there goes the pink one, and now time to address the yellow ones. So what have we got here? And I guess we'll start with the biggest one, which is this one here, and choose a pot. And of course, it's always very difficult to know what size pot you're going to need until you've like kind of cut off the roots and everything, because I did think I might need a bigger pot and I washed it, but there's no way that this cymbidium could go in that big pot. Instead, this one is probably more along the right lines. And as you put your plant in, you can just twist it. Helps the roots to slot into place. And again, with this one, I'm going to put the older pseudobulbs at the back and the newer ones at the front. So now it's time to backfill with the mix. If you can't find any ready-made mixes, then you should pot your cymbidiums in something like 50% fine orchid bark and 25% perlite. And don't be afraid to push down with your fingers just to make sure that there aren't any air pockets down there. Okay, that's the first one. The second biggest is this one here with 3 pseudobulbs and a back pseudobulb. And I will use this pot. In you go, my lovely. Number 2. And then the final little bitsy one. And I think I have a smaller pot here which I was keeping for something else, but I think that this is what we will use for this teeny tiny orchid. I wonder which of them will come into bloom first. Wouldn't we all be surprised if it was the teeny tiny baby one? Poor plants, they've been to the school of hard knocks, and I hope they'll forgive me and flower. Well, maybe not next year, but the year after. Okay, so just before I water in all of those newly repotted cymbidium orchids, there's something I want to show you, and it's this little plant here. Now, if you watch my videos regularly, you may recall that I brought this back from Madeira Island last December as a propagation material. So it was just a back bulb. I bought just a back bulb, and it's supposed to be an orange flowered cymbidium. And I propagated it, I potted it up. You saw that video there, and look what's happened. So you can see how this back bulb has given rise to a new growth, which is really, really good. And I'm hoping a pot full of roots. Now, this may even flower next year, I will be hopeful. But just since we've been busy kind of repotting rotting orchids, I thought it would be a good idea to show you what a healthy orchid looked like. Also, what you can do with back bulbs. So if you're repotting your orchids, very often we remove back bulbs that aren't doing much for the plant at all, and it's easy to get them going and to produce a new plant. So I guess what we're going to do now is to take this orange cymbidium out of its pot and see if we have a healthy root system. So I'm not going to put it down here because we have so much debris from the other orchids, and I certainly don't want to contaminate it. So let's just see if it comes out. Squish the sides of the pots and whoop, a bit more. Ha ha, ha ha. Look at that. We have some very nice roots. All of them white and some of them with juicy, juicy green tips like that one there. So while we're in the neighbourhood and while we're thinking all things cymbidium, I'm actually going to pot this up in a proper deep pot, which is what it needs. Now, when you propagate like this, what happens eventually is the old pseudobulb will rot. And when that happens, you need to divide them before the rot spreads to the new growths. But we're not there yet. And all we're doing really is just giving the roots that have grown so well the chance to spread. And I will use this pot here to pot them up in. It doesn't even look too big. I think I'm going to go with that. And I'm just going to backfill here with the mix that we've used up until now. And like cymbidiums are terrestrial orchids, so that the fact that there seems to be some kind of soily bits in this is not an issue for them, as it would be with, in fact they like it, whereas with tropical orchids you really don't want that at all. And in we go. It's looking really good. Now we just need to give it a bit of a water. And that brings us to the end of this video on repotting rotting cymbidiums. I hope you don't have to do it, but if you do, at least you know what you're up against. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you want to check out my others, I've made one on repotting healthy cymbidiums, which I'll link to here at the very end, and also one on cymbidium care, because these terrestrial orchids do have a few quirky things about them. If you grow tropical orchids, you don't necessarily grow cymbidiums well, unless you know a thing or two. So do check those out. Thank you as always for watching, and I will see you on the next video. Bye!